our fantastic guest today. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Insights and Innovation series for this Monday. Today, we have the pleasure of JCDecaux, who are fantastic partners of the independent sector, fantastic partners of indies in general, and also the amazing Morgan Hannaford, who is going to introduce our guest today. And they're going to be talking all things about travel trends, regional, New Zealand data, proof point studies, and white papers. Morgan, over to you to give a better introduction than that to today's speakers.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, hi everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to all the IMAA members. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to run the Insights and Innovation webinar this afternoon. Yes, it is. We didn't really have a headline as such because we have a jam-packed agenda. But before we start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all meeting today. I'm taking this call from Darawal land in the Sutherland Shire, and I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners and ongoing custodians of the lands and waterways we enjoy each and every day, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to extend that welcome with any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are on this call today. So as I mentioned, we do have a pretty good lineup today in terms of a number of team members joining me in the virtual room who are going to present a number of topics today. So let me introduce myself and also them. My name is Morgan Hannaford, for those who I haven't met. I run the Sydney sales team as the sales director there alongside Gemma Watkins. Gemma Enright is in the room with us today. She's the General Manager of Airports across our Australian and New Zealand business. We have Braden Saul, our Group Sales Manager, or one of the Group Sales Managers across the ditch in our New Zealand team, and he's joined by KP in the room there. And then, of course, we have Scotty Jenkins, who heads up our Research, Strategy and Effectiveness team in Australia as the Group Manager there. In terms of the topics that we're going to cover today, it's wide-reaching. We have first off the Ipsos Traveller Research. Then we're going to move over to New Zealand team to take us through the coverage there and also share some data insights and studies. And that's based on all the frequently asked questions they get from this cohort in Australia. And then finally, Scott will take us home with an attribution piece and all the proof studies and effectiveness studies that we have out in market, a summary of those, and also just to recap on our programmatic white paper. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Gemma Enright to take us through the Ipsos study.
Thank you, Morgs, and good morning, Sam and everyone right across the IMAA agency footprint. It's great to be here to share just a few insights from our most recent global airport study. So JCDecaux commissioned this. It was a global study. We did it in conjunction with Ipsos, which many of you would be familiar with. It's short and snappy, and it just sort of helps us understand, I guess, the current landscape of the airport media environment. If you know JCDecaux, you know we're very passionate about airports, and I'm very happy to be the GM here in the Trans-Tasman region. But around the world, we represent 150 or more airports across 37 countries and all 6 of the inhabited continents, which is important. I'm sure we'll have a go at the 7th if it ever is viable. But across that network, we reach 2.3 billion passengers every year. So we know a little bit about airports and we're super, super passionate about it. Here in closer to home, we represent 6 airports across the Trans-Tasman. That's Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, Auckland, Christchurch and Queenstown airports. And that delivers 87 million passengers every year. In Australia, we in that Sydney, Adelaide and Perth footprint, we deliver about 61 million passengers every year. Sorry, Morgs, that's just resetting. There we go. We've caught up. And one more slide, perfect. So I'm really going to share the Australian data with you. There were 14 airports included in the study, but I really want to focus on what's happening here. And as the title suggests, really this is about reconfirming the enduring magic of airports. So we know instinctively the airports have a number of powerful value propositions, and this research really came after what had been a sort of a challenging year globally for airport media, and really wanted to check in again on some of those value propositions. So really testing the value of the audience and the environment, the understanding of the mindset that consumers are in as they're travelling through their airport journeys. I'm really quantifying some of the behaviours. So what are people doing in airports? But most importantly for us is to check in on the power of advertising in that environment as well. Across the globe, there was 11,000 participants in this study, so a robust study. And here in Australia, 800 respondents. It was an easy online survey, took about 15 minutes. And in conjunction with that, we also went out and we interviewed a number of industry leaders in the airport space. So people like Paul Griffiths, who's the CEO of Dubai Airport. And if you've flown through there, you know that's a real powerhouse airport of the world. And there's also some commentary from Eric Jules Mortensen, who's the president of what we call the TFWA, which for those who are not in the duty-free retail space, that's the Tax-Free World Association, and obviously a key stakeholder in the airport ecosystem. Thanks, Morg. So the great thing is the first thing this study did for us was just reconfirm that, yes, there are very valuable consumer segments that can be reached in the airport environment. 27% of flyers are business flyers, 21% are frequent flyers, half is what we call high income flyers, and 15% were Gen Z flyers. And interesting in that younger end of the spectrum, if we expand that out to the 1834 demographic, so beyond Gen Z, that actually makes up 40% of the airport audience. And we know that the kind of profile of the 18 to 34s who can be found in the airport is often more affluent, more cashed up, obviously can afford to travel. So obviously as a business delivering advertising solutions, audience numbers are very important to us, and we use our official PAX or passenger data. If you've bought the airport before, you'll know what that is. But this study checked in again on just the intentions and the behaviours of travellers post-pandemic. And 6 in 10 say they are taking the same or more flights than they were a year ago. And half of frequent flyers, high income flyers, and just slightly less than half of all flyers said they really want to fly more because of the pandemic. And I think we feel that ourselves when we see everyone do that mass exodus to Europe. Unlucky not to be one of them this year. Thank you. So this study again reconfirmed that this most powerful value proposition for airports is dwell. So there's those longer moments of engagement that brands can spend with consumers. And so here you see the kind of time that travellers are spending in the airport, both in a domestic context, which is that darker bar, and an international one with that lighter bar. So we've got really good time in the international space. There's no surprise about that. You know, nearly half of them are spending 2 or 3 hours before their flight. A quarter of them, however, are spending 3 or more hours before their flight. But in the domestic environment, we're also seeing good levels of dwell, half 1 to 2, another 30%, 2 to 3 hours before their domestic flights. And I think one of the really powerful insights to this story is around business travellers, because we often get faced with this belief that business travellers are just whizzing in before their flight because they're often flying frequently. But actually what our study showed that that's not the case. Business flyers are actually seeing the airport as that bit of quiet time that they can have either for themselves or to do some work, and they're equally coming in really powerful numbers, very similar to these dwell figures. So what's driving that dwell? We think overwhelmingly that positive experience that people are having in the airport environment is one of the reasons that people are spending more time than they even need to prior to their flights. So 68% said the environment's very important to them, the way it's laid out, the atmosphere. 64% said they really enjoy looking at the pop-ups and the shops and advertising and other things on offer. And 63% said the experience is very special, and that keeps coming up again and again, that it's considered to be a little bit of a parallel universe. So it's different from everyday life, and that's part of the power of it. And so we say that, you know, unquestionably the airport experience is genuinely magical, and that creates a really nice dynamic for brands. So this is Paul Griffiths, CEO of Dubai Airports, and he says a paradigm shift has occurred where modern brand campaigns prioritise establishing emotional connections with consumers. Advertising within the airports plays a central role in creating an ambience and a brand presence that resonates emotionally. And that's a fantastic reflection on the kind of advertising that brands put into this environment as well. And here's just one example, thanks Morgs, of how advertising creates that emotional connection. So if you're familiar with the JCDecaux airport product, you'll know that we really are pushing 3D as an immersive creative tool in the toolkit to really leverage that magic that is in airports and really draw the attention into your own brand. And we'd love to see more and more of this happening across the portfolio. We have just recently upgraded all the assets in Adelaide and Perth. Beautiful new digital assets, over 70 new digital touch points, and now that's fully 3D enabled for you. So that's an exciting opportunity. So we know airports are real retail meccas in their own right. And, you know, Sydney, for instance, really is up there in terms of all domestic retail experiences in terms of what it drives from a revenue point of view. And the important thing is that we know that 80% of flyers have actually bought something at the airport in the last 12 months. That goes up to 90% for business flyers. But 65% haven't actually planned what they're going to buy. So if you are operating the airport environment and you are a retailer, there is an enormous opportunity to influence that traveller towards a sale. And we know that's even higher for frequent flyers. They're definitely not planning, but they're definitely spending up big in the airport. So if we look at how much is being spent in the airport, and just go back to some of those segments I mentioned before, we've got on the left-hand side, didn't spend at all. The next bar is spent $1 to $400. The next bar to the right is spent $400 to $1,200, and right at the right-hand side there is spent over $1,200. So again, you can see just at a glance there that business flyers are our most avid spenders. They're obviously quite an affluent segment, and they're really spending significantly in the airport environment. But you're still getting, you know, in that 18 to 35 younger end of the spectrum, you're still getting some significant investment. And I think that's, people are giving themselves that license to buy and spend in the airport environment. And we know that's especially true when it comes to premium and luxury shopping. It's kind of synonymous with going on a trip, is that you budget for this. So we're seeing people, you know, including business flyers, spending significant amounts on premium and luxury brands in the airport environment. While we're talking about the business traveller market a little bit, I just want to touch on a couple of insights that have emerged out of this study that either help us understand the business traveller a little bit more and how to talk to them, but equally bust a few myths. So the first thing we're seeing, and this has been validated by a number of different studies across the airport ecosystem, there's this growing trend of business travellers taking what we call bleisure travel. So that's a mix of business and leisure. So it's part of being economical about budgets, and part of being economical with your time is to join on a bit of a leisure experience off the back of business trips. We're definitely seeing that. We're talking about that dwell in terminals, and one of the things powering that is lots of investment airports are making in improving the experiences of the terminal environment. So whether that's new dining options, new premium shopping options, and certainly the business traveller we know is spending lots of time in the terminal, and only 27% of them are actually then making their way to the business lounge. So very important to remember that business travellers can be reached effectively and should be reached effectively through some of the terminal assets as well as the great ones we find in lounges. And the final point is about value airlines again, and they are making savvier choices when it comes to airlines. So we're seeing Virgin really doing very well lately in Sydney Airport. Obviously, that's important to consider T2 in your plans as well if you're after a more affluent business traveller as well. Obviously, for us, what's super important is just how well the advertising cuts through. So we were really pleased to see that there is a high level of attention and engagement achieved in the airport environment. So 2/3 of high-income travellers agree that advertising the airports really grabs their attention. They're often looking up at information boards. The ads are placed really strategically to capture their attention through those moments. But we also know that actually brands that are seen in the airport environment are often given these very valuable status and attributes. So 6 in 10 say that advertising in the airports gives that brand a feeling of being an international brand, having status. And the other top sort of 5 attributes bestowed on brands seen in airports are global, successful, prestigious, innovative, and trustworthy. So as an environment, it's incredibly brand safe and brand building environment. So this is Eric Schul-Miltonson. He's the president of the Tax-Free World Association, and he says, we've witnessed extraordinary advertising executions in airports, seamlessly blending into architectural spaces. These create endeavours not only to enhance the customer experience, but also play a pivotal role in turning those travellers into active shoppers. And you may have experienced these yourself if you've travelled, but obviously bringing rich brand experiences into the airport environment is one way that we really deliver on what Eric is talking about. This is a great example for Ralph Lauren that we executed around the AO. So this was both, sort of immersive brand experience, but also a retail opportunity as well. Morgs. This is in Heathrow. Heathrow is obviously a really well-regarded airport for this type of experience activation. This was for Johnny Walker Blue Label. Included sampling, included multimedia, so you could put headphones on and really listen to the story of the product, and just inviting the consumer to spend a little bit more time with that brand. And then finally, this is another one. Again, you can see sport is a rich territory for activation in airports because you often get that flow through of people attending these big events. This is in Jeddah Airport in Saudi Arabia for the Grand Prix. And so there was everything from race simulators, demonstrations of vehicles. There was an enormous amount to sort of touch and feel and get involved in. So all of these activation experiences and combining that with the quality of our advertising assets, we really think that airport media can deliver across that full spectrum of the funnel and across multiple marketing objectives. So our study, we think, really validated that. From creating sort of brand awareness and engagement at the top end of that funnel. We know that 41% of people went on and searched for more information about a product after seeing an ad in the airport environment. To consideration, 44% visited a retail store or went onto a retail website to really investigate that. And pleasingly, 36% claim to have gone on and actually purchased something that they've seen advertised in the airport. So these are good statistics, and I think they really speak to a powerful story of return on investment for brands. So that's really it. And so just sort of wrapping up the findings of this particular study, we know airports deliver valuable audiences. We know that there's really strong intention to travel and behaviour. Flying behaviours have bounced back really strongly. We're seeing that in passenger growth numbers as well. Dwell continues to be the biggest point of differentiation for airports. It's truly unique in being able to deliver that. Business travellers, a couple of interesting trends around those. They're getting savvy with their choices. They're really enjoying what airports are doing in terms of lifting the game on retail, dining, all those kind of experiences. And we know that airport advertising really works, and this study helps to prove that it really can create value right across the funnel. So just leaving you with a lasting thought, this is Eric again, the landscape has evolved, consumer behaviours have shifted, and it's imperative that we adapt accordingly. Reliance on traditional approaches is no longer sufficient to meet the demands of today's traveller. And I think this is a little thought bubble we like to leave at the back end of this research, because we're about to launch something really exciting. JCDecaux Airports is launching. We've been working incredibly hard on how we sort of deepen the value, expand out the sales toolkit to give you more opportunities to engage and take advantage of all these wonderful attributes that airports offer. So we'll be coming back and talking to you all. So thanks for having me today, and watch this space.
Thanks so much, Jem. I really appreciate those insights, and they speak to me, as I'm sure they do with many people who are going through the airport. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to go across the ditch to our team in New Zealand to take you through some valuable insights about that market, including data measurement and also some key studies. Over to you, Braden.
Yeah, thanks, Morgs, and thanks to the IMAA and all its members for letting us hijack this time. So it's quite a timely piece to come in, I think, because frequently we've been getting asked a lot of questions about, I guess, what we look after here in the New Zealand market, how our audience and reach is measured, along with sort of localised studies, etc. So really timely that we could kind of pull this together for you and take a few highlights and overview of the market. It's just a quick snapshot of our team. We do work with quite a few of the IMAA members already, but putting a face to the name. A lot of you will know Phil Eastwood, who's been with us for a year now as our General Manager, Kavish Patel, or KP, who's with me now, and then myself and Brett, along with a few of the other team members as well. Across programmatic and our insights team. Yeah, so today the three main things we kind of get asked about is the JCDecaux New Zealand portfolio, what we look after, our tools and audience measurement and research pieces, as well as, I guess, our plan for the future and how our development's going. So as of even last week, I had 2 more agencies from Australia reach out on these topics. So again, very timely. I'll take you through that now. Thanks, Morgs. So one thing I wanted to point out was New Zealand's a very different market to Australia. Unfortunately, our public transport here is horrific. Like, I think most countries say that, but ours is actually terrible. But what that means for Kiwis is 80% of Kiwis travel each day for work, studies, sporting activities, etc. But one of the biggest things there is only 10% of commuting is actually on public transport. So I think that's where the JCDecaux New Zealand assets really come into their own, and the reason why we, I guess, invest in our formats is largely down to some of these key stats. And you see there, like 52 minutes, that's a long time in New Zealand to be sitting in your car. I certainly don't want to be doing that long, but we are doing a lot of that. So it's, it's really important to kind of understand the New Zealand landscape, and it is quite different to Australia.
Yeah, just on that, we get a lot of clients from Australia asking about transit, but again, to Braid's point, This is probably the most important slide, I reckon, from our section is knowing the difference between, the culture of driving your own car versus in Australia, the public transport system is so much better. It's well equipped, it's on time. Here, it's not. So it's just one important thing to go, okay, do you have a transit pack or do you sell transit? We do have Wellington train station, but outside of that, everything else is roadside and airport, obviously.
Yeah, and I guess, moving on to this next point. So, roadside digital and static is a huge part and probably the core part of our business, along with our airport assets, which I'll touch on later. If you move through, thanks, Morgs. Yeah, so we've got 45 large digital format screens across New Zealand. That's across 6 of the regions, 6 regions across New Zealand. And then more recently, we've been developing what we're calling our smart frames. So these are portrait, 7 times the size of street furniture panels here in New Zealand. And these have been expanded across sort of our 3 main Mets, city, suburban locations. And I'll touch slightly more on this as we go through. In New Zealand, so our large format, we are known for our premium, big, impactful roadside assets. And here's just a few of them and how they kind of lay out. We've got a couple of the contracts that we do have allow us to have 95% of all the overpass bridges throughout New Zealand. We've got assets that are, big, bold, beautiful, and some of the key sort of retail precincts, all positioned in high dwell time. And then, of course, our airport assets as well, which, a few of them when you're flying in at night time, bloody lights up the sky and they're beautiful to see.
But I was just going to say, majority of the assets are positioned at traffic lights as well, giving that long dwell time.
And then, so smart frames, which I mentioned, 7 times the size of our street furniture panels here in New Zealand. These have been a growing success. So we've developed 27 of these now, and I'll touch on our future plans around how these are going to mean. But these are all sort of positioned slightly elevated on roadside, typically on a single standing pole. A few are on buildings like that middle one there. And these, they've had such great success in New Zealand by kind of bridging that gap between small format, large format, but also bringing impact to street furniture campaigns. So that's, 7 times the size, highly viewable, quality reach. These are all positioned at high dwell time areas. And these are, huge with FMCG companies, and how they're kind of positioned are, they're spread out through that suburban or, that city fringe locations. And here we're kind of expanding out 27. And at the end, I'll kind of take you through just Auckland, Wellington. Yes, just Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch at this stage. But on the last slide of the campaign, I'll take you through sort of that future development of our smart frames. And then airports, so we look after exclusively the 3 New Zealand's busiest airports. So Auckland, which is currently broken into 2, Auckland International and then domestic, that is currently in plans to merge in the coming years, and then Christchurch and Queenstown. Auckland being by far the busiest airport, Auckland and Christchurch, and then Queenstown's an interesting one because Queenstown is the only place we can do, Queenstown Airport is the only place you can do outdoor advertising due to council restrictions not allowing out-of-home advertising down there. So we all know Queenstown Airport numbers are hugely Australian, especially through those winter months coming over to snowboard or ski. And then here was a quick snapshot. So recently in New Zealand, once we've rolled out the measurement throughout our airports, which I'll touch on shortly, what we found, I guess, talking to agencies here in New Zealand was not to look at the airport traveller as just a traveller. And people going through the airport, they have credit cards, mortgages, in the market to purchase cars, etc. So what we're kind of working with the agencies, if you're just adding that 20% budget on, we were finding there was a 40% incremental reach, which I know Gemma would say a lot of that we know airport drives reach, but this was just kind of a quick snapshot. I wouldn't focus on the numbers too much, but that sort of that 1 to 2 ratio of finding that reach is really powerful, and it's something here in New Zealand that we're really gaining a lot of traction on, and a lot of clients are kind of adding that into their mix. And then moving on to our tools and capabilities in this space. So there are quite a few things that JCDecaux New Zealand and Australia have in common, likes of optics. But kind of the 3 key touch points I'll talk to today is Calibre, which is our audience measurement platform, our kind of intelligence area, which looks at local research, and also a new data partnership, which we are going into. So Calibre, so this is our version of Move. This was originally developed by JCDecaux New Zealand, I think in 2016, almost 10 years ago. And then over the years, other suppliers have got on board and now I guess co-owners of Calibre. The current, I guess, ownership make up just over 80% of the market, with only a couple more waiting to come on board or very close to coming on board. We're having conversations every day. So this is definitely the place where, it's going to be the unified out-of-home solution here in New Zealand, which I know media agencies across New Zealand have been screaming out for a long time. So what this will allow you to do if you're booking across multiple suppliers is getting that net reach overall. It's powered by Landmarks ID. They've been on board since the beginning.
Yeah, close to.
Moving forward. So this allows us to, view demographics across multiple campaigns and platforms, and also different screens and locations, etc. And then new data partnership, which we're sort of soft launching at the moment, but going out to market very soon. So a lot of you probably will be familiar with LifeSite over in Australia, as it's quite well established over there, relatively new or, not as well heard of here, but awesome to be able to be the first New Zealand partner to license this data. And what that will mean, sorry, Morgs, next slide. So what this will allow us to do is bring us audience and insight, audience and behavioural insights, first-party demographics, device insights, mobility insights, and then further down the path as well, category purchase behaviour. So this is something, again, that New Zealand agencies and clients have been wanting to see more of. Are our sites over-indexing for particular behavioural demographics, or can we target areas where potentially their brand's unheard of to drive more awareness and consideration within those areas? So we'll be rolling this out. So if there's of interest, we can definitely link up with the Teams call to take you through it once we launch around mid-October, I believe.
Yeah, and for us, this is LifeSite is more a contextual layer for us. So where your demographics over indexes rather than trying to hyper target it to just that one audience. So you've got the reach layer, you've got the brand stature layer, but then under that is where LifeSite will come in, where your index here, where your audience over index, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and then this is a quick snapshot really of our intelligent, I guess what we call our research department. We've got a number of studies, whether that's I guess repositioned from international studies or from Australia. I think we did one recently off the back of the Gen Z Australia that was built out of Australia and positioned it for the New Zealand market. But yeah, huge touch point here. But some of the key ones which I'll talk to, which I highlight on the next slide. My personal favourites and ones that are extremely interesting were our neuro studies, which are come across in 3 parts. And what this looked at is large format and impactful media choice. And what it found is it delivered memory encoding, which it basically aligns with memorability for campaigns so that they'll be remembered and that are effective. And what this did was as large format as in the outdoors, it kind of measures the left and the right-hand side of the brain. The right-hand side being your global buyer, so that's your sort of emotive, your brand codes kind of pieces, and then your detailed side, which is pricing, product, etc. And what I found that large format roadside delivered emotive outcomes for advertisers. Probably not surprising that, as I mentioned, it is outside, so people are aware of their surroundings outside. You think back to sort of the caveman days, that bush is moving in the corner of my eye. Is that a tiger that's going to eat me, or is it a bird just flying around in the tree? And then the second part of that was how large format primed for digital. What I found when you looked at when consumers saw both, I guess, the large format and then the mobile advertising, it had a higher memorability impact and a higher rate of conversion. What this meant was, I guess, that large format piece is working on the right-hand side of the brain, and it's basically allowing the brain to shortcut when it sees the mobile advertising and go straight into product and price, etc., and get those key details that you need. And then when you move through to our airport piece, airport was really an interesting study, as airport fluctuates between both the left-hand side as you kind of go through those emotive transitions throughout the airport, saying goodbye to family as you're going on your OE, or you're going through security. Have I left that mandarin on my bag that biosecurity is going to catch me with, or scissors in my bag? And so you're kind of anxious, but yeah, as you kind of fluctuate through that, your brain's bouncing between both sides and taking in all that detail. And also through the airport, it's a bit of a linear journey, so you have that time to have that repeat messaging and frequency throughout the different points in the airport.
Yeah, so it's things that we know, but it's also good to prove, but also clients have used it in different ways. So now we've got a telco brand that basically is priming externally on the airport, so that's more right side of the brain, but then internally where there's more dwell times, and we know that the left side of the brain is more active, they're putting more detail on the messaging, so it's people are more receptive to that messaging and subconsciously taking it in and remembering it for the next level of advertising, or to raise this point, priming you through a digital experience.
And then looking forward into the future, which I mentioned around our smart frame, I guess, strategic plan and development there. So we are planning some pretty rapid expansion growth within the smart frame network. We have recently signed a new deal or new kind of contract with Kiwi Property, which has allowed, which Kiwi Property looked after some of New Zealand's biggest retail precincts, and then also through another contract and I guess partner of ours is really allowing us to kind of expand through the regions. So between now and I guess the end of next year, we're looking to kind of take that number of 27 smart frames up to around that 50. And through to that next slide, Morgs, is some of sort of those key areas where we're looking this next quarter. So we're looking to get these 8 smart frames either up in this next quarter or next 4 months. So Sylvia Park, which is New Zealand's largest mall, we'll have 2 of these going in there. Lynn Mall, and then Palmerston North, which is a region we're not currently in. So again, so that's another digital asset now that we'll have in a new region, along with Hamilton as well. So these smart frames are going to be rolled out as fast as we can. And with these retail precincts, yes, very good for retail clients, but they're also positioned in just heavy traffic areas. So it just builds those reach. These products have been hugely popular with FMCG and with another huge range of clients, really, just developing and building that reach and scale for brands. And on that, so we're looking at, I think, another 6 different regions, I think, off the top of my head, roughly. So really exciting to see where those smart frames are going to take us and allow us to be a true national buyer across the regions as well. So I hope you found this overview useful or given you some insights and hopefully spark some thoughts around future campaigns. If you need to get in touch, reach out to your JCDecaux Australia rep and they'll be able to pass you on to myself and Brett and the rest of the team. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and hopefully talk to you all later.
Thanks so much, guys. Okay, to bring us home, we have Scott Jenkins, who is going to take you through an overview of all of our proof and attribution studies available in the market at the moment.
Thanks, Morgs. I'll try to get through this quickly, seeing as there's 1 minute to go. So JCDecaux Proof is essentially our program of doing case studies that are a little bit less transactional. We like to get really deep in collaboration with our clients on doing these case studies. We like to do really robust and independent analysis, so working through these case studies with third parties, and ultimately we want them to culminate in case studies that you can all access. So it's not just at the end of the campaign sort of PCR for the client. It's proving the role of out of home, and you can all see the evidence behind it. So that's, I guess, our proof program in a nutshell, is to give something back to you. So just the point of this slide is to communicate that there's kind of something for everybody. These are just a snapshot of some of the studies we've done this year. If you're interested in transit or have a FMCG client, our Ocean Spray case study would be great there. If you've got a retail brand or somebody that's purely online, the Temple & Webster case study is going to be perfect there. We did our first drive to web attribution study this year, so actually proving how out of home drives people online, so a hard-edged attribution study, and also the programmatic white paper that some of you may have seen or heard about already, but was a really big moment for us to put together a lot of case studies around how programmatic actually delivers results for advertisers. So I'll just quickly go through each one of these just to give you a bit of an idea. So the brand uplift study we did for Ocean Spray was purely centered around their transit activity. It was brand new for them. They'd never done transit before and wanted to understand how it worked. And working with Kantar, who are a major global market research agency, we found that it really right through the funnel, transit exposure had a really, really strong impact, most notably in driving unaided brand awareness. Is a really strong lift there. It essentially doubled amongst the audience that was exposed to transit, but also grew consideration and grew some of their key brand associations as well. So if you want to learn more about transit or have an FMCG brand, a great case study for you to access. On the next one, Temple & Webster, brand that is growing, but still really needs to drive awareness to compete with the likes of really established players like IKEA and kind of that furniture and homewares space. So their brief was grow awareness through the scale and impact of out of home. So we did a really cool study with On Device, which is an app-based research platform. Basically proved that every layer of brand awareness, from top of mind to unaided to prompted brand awareness, all grew considerably above On Device's benchmarks after exposure to the campaign. So if you're getting retail or have a purely online brand, a really great case study for how to build brand metrics there. The next one, jump through. This one isn't branded right now. We're hoping to get approval from the client to release it to you, but it was for a meal delivery service that went through a really big brand refresh. But ultimately, the brand lives online. It's where you go to order from them. So they wanted to work with us to understand how exposure to out of home actually drove people online. And what we saw was that an exposed audience, when we looked at them compared to a control group, non-exposed audience, they're 43% more likely to be seen on the website in basically during the campaign and a few weeks post the campaign. As well. And 4 out of 5 of those people actually visited within a week of exposure as well. So out of home having a really quick impact of driving people online to the website. So a great case study there if your brand's all about just maybe the pointy end of the funnel and driving people online. And then jumping through the programmatic white paper. So one of the challenges with programmatic, I guess, is it had really great consideration and uptake since we first launched it back in 2021, I think it was. But there was a real thirst in the market for more case studies, not just to show why you should use it, but the actual business impact. So this was about a 6 to 9 month project of us to collect 15 case studies that we could put into one, essentially a white paper to prove how programmatic can achieve a whole range of different business objectives. Let's jump into the next slide. As I mentioned, there was 15 case studies. That includes both some massive global brands, but also some local brands and some smaller brands. And so there's a really broad cross-section of different types of brands and different categories. So again, you should be able to find something for any client that you work with. Each one of the case studies looks at why they used it, what formats they use, what was their investment in their markets, all the functional details of the campaign and the why of the campaign, but also then how we measured success, whether that was brand building or harder metrics like footfall and sales and things like that. And ultimately, it gives you all the ingredients to know what a great programmatic campaign works like. And it's available as this beautiful ebook that I give our credit to our design team to work on. It's a beautiful document, really, really easy to read, and I encourage you all to download it and have a look. So I think there might be one more slide. So if you want to learn more, it's all available on our website. If you jump on, I think there's a section that says 4 brands, and you click case studies, or we'll send you these links after. But if you want to learn more about those 4 or the 3 proof studies I mentioned, plus other ones we've done in past years, it's all there. You can download the programmatic white paper. I'd love for everybody on this call to do it if you haven't already. And I'd also encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn. And that's not just to sell, to get more followers up. We're actually made a really focused effort this year to increase the amount of kind of research facts we're including when we're talking about great campaigns on our socials. So rather than just sharing some great imagery, we want to be able to put the evidence behind it to say, and here's how it worked, or here's what we know about audiences. So if you want to get those continued facts and information, please follow us, and there's some great content living there at the moment. So that's all from me.
Love it. Thank you, Scott, and thank you to all our team members and presenters today. A really quick fire learning there for everyone on that insights from airports to New Zealand, and obviously attribution studies and effectiveness studies that are all live in market now. We can share all of these resources to you after the fact, or just reach out to any of the JCDecaux team members and we can come out and present the information to you. But thank you everyone for your time and your attention. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Morgan. Thank you so much, JCD, and all the speakers, and thank you for your support. Great session, big one today. Just a quick reminder, guys, kicking off tomorrow, we've got our In Front series. So this is our upfronts for the indies. If you don't get a chance to go to some of the upfronts, you can get a condensed version of that. That is tomorrow, kicking off, I think, at 10 o'clock. Then we have Female Leaders of Tomorrow, closing off the application process for the Mentor Ease. That's the end of this week. So if you want to be part of the Female Leaders of Tomorrow program, please put your hand up for that this week. Melbourne Principal and Partner Night on the 3rd. So that's the week after next Thursday. And on the 2nd, there's also an event called Future Media will also be there from waving the IMAA Academy flag there. South Australia, we're over there on the 10th of October. Gladiator 2 in Brisbane coming up in November. King's Narrative tour, that's happening on the 18th of June next year. Make sure you get a spot in that. And that is pretty much it, guys, for now. Thank you so much for paying attention, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Morgan, and thank you, JCD, again. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.